are very jealous. They've let go of the kimono while we've kept hold of the sari. But I hear very disturbing reports of the way interest in the sari is being lost. Is that true or not?
On one level, the sari is a double-edged sword. Yes, there are more people wearing kurtas and things that are more comfortable and practical. We cannot stop this because this is a natural evolution of clothing. But I would like to say one thing: the sari has become mainstream for a lot of designers. I myself, for every collection, I will make sure that we have a minimum of 2, if not 6 saris. And I also want to say this, that I know that even modern women in the end, to feel graceful, to feel elegant and to go out, will continue to wear a sari. Because the proof of the pudding is also in the pre-stitched saris that you are getting and the lycra cholis that you get in the market. Almost every market in India is now selling pre-fitted jersey or lycra saris. I would like to go on the other side of the board and tell you that it gladdens my heart when we have a wedding in India and then you have these, like, you know, say a young girl has gone and studied in America or a young boy has gone and studied in America or the UK or Europe, and they come back to their wedding in India because it's so much colorful, it's so much fun, it doesn't last for 2 hours, it lasts for 8 days, and there is this full on maja and the clothes become a part of it. And then you have these like foreign returned students, aunts, whoever it is, who all don't want to wear their western clothes because it looks outright boring. I mean, you have a sea of black ravens instead of having a sea of color. And then they come and there's a big wedding market and they're all in their ghagras because they have to wear a ghagra for the mehndi and for the this and the other and then a sari for the wedding. So I think it's on both sides. I mean, western, if you look at western dressing today, you walk down London Bond Street, you are definitely going to see a Lucknowi chicken kurta. You are definitely going to see a simple Indian kurta. I designed this kind of a kurta in a shortened version in 1991. I should have patented it because now I find it from Dior to the Rastawala down here in Hyderabad. So let me tell you, they are wearing us more than we are wearing them. I mean, what's so great about the Western repertoire? Let me tell you, because I've studied in the West in 2 of the great cities of the world, Los Angeles and Paris fashion. And everywhere I go, I am sick of seeing a blouse, a skirt, a pant, a jacket, a cocktail dress and a ball gown. Of course, a ball gown they can't wear unless they are perfect figure. So we're talking of like 7 garments. I mean, look at Hyderabad or look at Andhra Pradesh. You open the repertoire of Indian garments, every state has a minimum of 25, if not 48, if you're lucky. Some states like Rajasthan must be having 80, I think, garments. I mean, from a ghagra to a kedia blouse to whatever, this is a big country and we can really celebrate our clothes. And the mistake we make is that we let Armani copy our Nehru jacket, we let Calvin Klein copy our Sherwani, then we are in deep trouble. We got to do it ourselves, because if we don't do it ourselves, and if you guys from Hyderabad don't pick out your Johasha and make a stupid mistake like which some designers are doing in Hyderabad, I want to push what is Goan. Kashmir is done best by Rohit Bal. Sabyasachi does Calcutta best. Please wear your ethnicity. It is the only soul that you have, and that comes from fashion.
Hi, my name is Medha and I've lived in many countries, and I like to wear Western as well as Indian clothes, and you are the first fashion designer I ever met in flesh and blood. So my question is very simple. I see so many fashion shows which come on TV. I never attended any. But when I see those clothes, I feel those ladies have come from Mars or Venus. And I cannot even imagine myself in those clothes. Do they, some place in our planet, do they wear those clothes or they just for the show?
That is an excellent question. First of all, let me tell you, I think they have come from Mars and Venus. I'm talking the models. I have a niece who's a model, she's 6 feet tall, and I call her very lovingly, my stick insect, because she is an anorexic grasshopper. She's extremely tall. And there's something wrong with models. First of all, they are dysfunctional. We are the normal ones. I know all my friends who are models from Malaika Arora and the older generation right down to the latest discovery. They are abnormal. They can eat as much as they want, they can not go to the gym, and they can still stay that same size that we want on the ramp as a factory produced thing. What you're talking about wearing those clothes, let me tell you, no matter how funny it looks on ramp, in the end, you look at say, I can give the best example, Manisha Arora. Everybody laughs and says, who's going to wear this? In the end, the darzi on your road is going to copy not the whole garment. He may just take the collar. He may say, I like the cut of the sleeve. I like this color combination. I don't like the whole thing. There are 25 colors. I'm taking 3 colors. So in the end, that high fashion, which you feel is unwearable, it's always been this way. Nobody was going to look at Marie Antoinette and wear what she wore in the palace at Versailles. But in the end, something trickles down, and finally that big ball gown becomes a smaller ball gown for a regular person to wear. And this happens in Indian fashion as well, and in Western fashion. You cannot afford haute couture. You can't pay 40,000 rupees for a Chanel mini. It's not possible. But that mini, once it's seen, is going to end up in Marks and Spencer's at some stage. Do you know in fashion we have what is called a trend cycle? A trend cycle is when something new appears, some people will look at it, a group of ladies, very small group who have perfect bodies, Queenie Singh or that kind of group who will say, I'm going to wear that dress, then some people like her on that dress. Then these fashion people in say West Side or whatever are saying, oh, we like that dress, we'll copy it in a different version, but for, adapt it for the Indian woman. They'll make it looser, they'll make the sleeves longer, the neckline won't go to Kanyakumari, it will stop at a reasonable height, and then they will put it out for sale, and then it'll get worn, it'll become a trend. Once it reaches the top of the graph, it's like a business graph which we watch very carefully because our money lies there. Once it reaches that business graph, there are 2 things that can happen to it. People are so fed up of it, it will fall down and sink. It's become a fashion trend and it's gone out. Or like Chanel, or like the kurta I'm wearing, or like the sari that she's wearing, it will stay there. With that drape and whatever that she's wearing, it's going to stay and become a classic. And that's what we want. We want more classics in the air. And you get your classics because of these funny clothes that come on the market and on TV and on ramps, but we don't take the whole thing. We don't want you to take the whole thing. For God's sake, you can't fit into it.
Were you talking about fashion from the ramp into reality, or were you talking about these deep television serials and the Ramleela costumes the women wear? Fashion ramp. So that answers your question. Yes. Yes, I get more scared of the Ramleela costumes and the sindoor and the jewelry, the women. That's scary, yes. And I don't think that's so true either. Sleeping, yes, with this entire. Any more questions?
I have a philosophy about that. I tell my staff that when they are making the clothes, I do not want any embroidery for one reason only. Is that if a husband is holding his wife at a cocktail party, he should not feel that he's touching a cactus. So I don't want any sequins to go on the back, Then she sits on it, it's like that princess who felt the pee under the mattresses. I don't want a lady to feel these, sequins going up her butt. It's not going to happen. So we try to keep it as minimal, keep it a little on the front, keep the emphasis on the face. We want them to look at her face, not at her cleavage or talk to something else. I always say, when a woman walks into a room, I want my dress to be taking second place. I want them to say, what a beautiful woman, and then I want them to say, what a beautiful dress she's wearing. I don't want the dress to enter 2 minutes before her and say, hey, by the way, who is she wearing, or what is her name? You get those dresses that do so much of talking that they are only talking, and the girl has got drowned in that dress, poor thing. Yeah.
Hello, Wendell. Welcome to Hyderabad View. This is the question is with Creative One. The one you said that you got inspiration from the Diona School of Blind. So how did you think that the people who were visually impaired, or whatever the thought was on you using it on your design, how did you think it would work? they're not going to feel the dress, right?
I must tell you.
I'm sorry, I actually don't know how you implemented it on the dress.
How I invented it, I'll tell you. Do you know when Professor Acharya first spoke to Meher Castellino, who's a journalist who gave me his contact, he said he wanted to do t-shirts, brightly colored t-shirts with braille and the alphabet written on the whole t-shirt, so that we who have sight can look how braille looks or know what A, B, C looks like. That was the thing. I didn't want to do that. I said, that's very easy to do. So then I asked him, I said, tell me, how do you feel about clothes? Then he told me about this thing that you all take 10 minutes and you all get confidence, and we take 45 minutes and we are still lost and our cupboard is in a big mess, which touched my heart. And I said, I'll try to help you. I went back, I learned color theory in a hospital where they were treating people with color. Somebody with a liver problem was given yellow light on a yellow bed, in yellow walls, etc. So I said, maybe if we give them, colors that make them feel happy. We'll give them red, they'll feel invigorated. We'll give them green, they'll calm down. But that color theory holds only if you can see a person. It cannot hold otherwise. So then I got this idea. After 9 months, I got the idea of why don't we transfer Braille? Because they can read Braille. So we can write on their clothes. It was a very long process. We photocopy the Braille paper. When you photocopy, it gets enlarged a little bit. He called me up. He said, Mr. Rodrigues, I cannot read anything because you people with eyes, you all can see alphabet A as big as a building or as small as an ant. With us, it has to fit in this ball of our finger to be able to read it. So I went in the night, I took the Braille from the blind school in Goa and I said, please excuse me, I'll give it first thing in the morning back. And we actually copied it at night and then gave it back. Then I sent him that shirt. And I said, can you read what is written? And then he read that it's the Wendell Rodrigues Visionaire collection. So it sounds like, if you read my book, The Green Room, I write in detail about how we actually did the collection. One very funny thing that happened was, it went all over the world, Newsweek wrote about it and Time and this, that. One girl called me up from Paris and she said, thank you, God bless you. And she was crying. She said, I have put Braille on all my clothes now and I have no problem. She had even put on her stockings. And she said, I'm a model. And I said, you're a model? How come, if you can't see, how can you do this? She said, no, I can feel with my foot the vibration where the center of the ramp is compared to the side. I know when I reach head ramp by the light. And when I find the warmth of the light at that level, I know I have to stop and turn back. She said, when I turn back, I know I must not bump into the next model and I see where the wall of breeze is being stopped on my right or left, and accordingly I can maneuver. I was telling this to Javed Akhtar Saab in the morning and he told me something very strange. He said, Wendell, have you seen people who are thinking deeply or they have forgotten something and a thought has to come? They will close their eyes and hold something to their head or ears and bring that thought back in. When we are minus one of those senses, then we heighten the others.
Thank you. Which part of Goa is your studio?
Which part of Goa am I from?
No, studio.
My studio?
Yeah.
In my village. I come from my ancestral village, which is in Kolwal in North Goa.
Okay. Thank you.
I was just wondering, Wendell, if you create one of these finest things that women feel, that they're not wearing and feel beautiful and what have you, and you're just in love with that product, and then they just go and do something else to it, and you see that, what does it do to you? Or the other way around, you see somebody in absolute, utterly hopeless set of colors together. Do you ever go up to them and kind of say, what have you done? Or
it's one of the reasons I wear sunglasses, but no, I don't. I have learnt one thing, okay? This is the whole truth. There's no such thing as good style. And there's no such thing as good fashion. This is a very large country, there's space for everyone. I've stopped long since laughing at what I thought was bad taste, but there is no good taste and there's no bad taste. There's space for everyone. You may think it's bad taste. Frankly speaking, they think it's great taste and you are not to judge anyone.
nice, that's nice, yeah.
Yes.
Somebody tampers with your style, what do you do?
If somebody tampers with my style, I've seen it happen. I almost died. I had this lovely tunic and I was at the Taj one day and I found that this lovely tunic that was meant to be loose and breezy and floaty was, one lady had actually taken it to her tailor and she had put darts and a zipper and made it tight and puckered, and I was like, I said maybe I should just go take a scissors and cut my label from the back, because she's going to say that she's wearing my garment, and that is the worst advertisement I need. I've trained my staff in my shop. I say, please do not tell them that they look good if they look bad. Tell them, ma'am, we'll offer you something else, because she's going to go to her husband. Her husband's going to say, this looks awful. Her children are going to laugh at her and say, that looks terrible. And then finally she's going to go to a party, and then they'll say, who is that? And they'll say, it's Wendell Rodrigues. My name gets ruined and they won't buy my clothes anymore. So better be truthful and recommend something else.
Question around the topic that you mentioned about magical realism of food. That's a very interesting topic. Can you talk a little bit more around that? And the second question is, what about magical realism in clothes?
Well, I'll answer the second one first. Magical realism in clothes is very much what fashion is about. Fashion is about fantasy that you make reality, and I think it's more difficult to write about it because there's much more emotion involved. I didn't get your first question. What was the first question?
You mentioned about the magical realism of food, the book that you're writing
Of food,
about.
yeah.
Can you elaborate a little bit more around that? That seems very interesting in terms of.
Well, it's the way I've written about it. It's not about, you write a recipe, for example, and you say ingredients, 100 grams, so and so, and then you go to the method. With me, my recipe procedure is take 2 plump ripe tomatoes and chop them up into dices that look like pomegranates, and so it goes in that way. And at some stage, that person has to pray for me, otherwise the recipe won't turn right.
And welcome to Hyderabad Literary Festival.
Thank you.
I was wanting to know, you've been around for so long in the fashion industry. It's no secret that there's a lot of stress, a lot of cutthroat competition going around. So I wanted to know what exactly are the things that drive you each and every day to outperform yourself every day, and when I'm sure you've got days of dejection and I'm sure you've had a few bad days. So what are the things that you fall back upon so that you deliver your best?
Okay, I'd like you to give that mic to the girl in front of you who want to ask a question so I can answer you both together.
My question is how important it is to have strong contacts to enter into the fashion industry and have a,
How
because
important
that
is to
is
have strong what?
no, as in to have some influential people and know some influential people
Okay.
To enter
Fine.
into the industry, because that is one
And
of the
give the
reasons
mic to
why-
her. Yeah, I got the question.
Hi, Wendell. This is a slightly different question. You said you have actually 2 careers, as a writer and as a designer. Which gives you more pleasure and which brings in a little bit of pain?
Okay.
Just tougher.
I'm going to go to the first question. Do we have days of stress and rejection? Definitely not. I enjoy my process of creativity. It's my company that suffers after that. They are the ones who have to sell it, they are the ones who have to make the money, and they are the ones who have to reach the budget. I mean, my partner in real life and in the business is a tyrant. To increase the sales by 20% this year, you're not getting an increase. I think that's stress. I do the collection and they say you do whatever you want, take as much fabric as you want, and I waltz away from it, and I'm really happy doing the clothes. Second question, do you need somebody of influence in the industry? I think it would help. I think it would help if you had money, first of all. Forget about influence. You can buy page 3. You can buy the front page of the Hyderabad Times. You can contact some actress and dress her. I have no time to go and chase them. But I'll tell you one thing. That may last for a short while. The real talent is going to last. I always tell my students, you will be really happy doing these collections for 3 years. Then you'll get fed up of them. If you have the talent to go beyond 3 years, we'll wait for year number 7. By year 7, you may get stuck. Like many big names who I can't take their names of. 7, you'll get stuck. If you can go beyond 13, you're onto a winning wicket. Of course, at 27 years, I must say that there's a process to make money, to show a good collection that makes the press sit up and say, wow. It's not something that you learn in a school. It's something that you learn over time, how to play everyone. Play the buyers, you play the media, you play everybody, and you come out on top with your creativity. If you don't have creativity, nothing's going to happen. No influential person can save you. And your last question was?
Which gives you more happiness?
Which gives me
right?
both. Both give me more happiness, because when I finish the collection, I give the collection away to my team, and they do production and PR and lookbook and whatever they want with it. At that time, I go back to my book and I sit happily playing with words. I mean, as a person, I went from designing salads and catering to designing women, so I can design words as well.
satisfying also?
Oh, I love it. I live a very full life. I do activism in Goa. I'll stand on top of a truck and fight the miners and win. And I'm a Goan environmentalist, and we do lots of things. Yes, last question, ma'am.
So you spoke about technology and fashion, but in India we don't see, like in foreign countries, we see people from different backgrounds like architects, engineers and designers collaborate and do better things. Why don't we see such scenario in our country more?
Well, actually, you might not see it because it's not spoken about, because very often when technology comes in that way, we put a clause saying that we're not putting this garment in the market until 6 months have passed. And very often after 6 months have passed, we've already spoken about it. Like at the moment, we've done a 3D dress out of sugar, where the model's going to break the dress and eat half of it, as much as we can allow her to, and not leave her naked out there. But it's technology. You just use it and grab the eyeballs you can during Fashion Week. Everybody has to fight and play tricks and vicious games to get the media, be in the news and sell more clothes. But technology is very much there. It's very much there. They tell us designers first before hitting the market. If it becomes a success with us, they flood the market, because they say this pleating done by Wendell Rodrigues was so successful, so sabko dena hai. After 9 months, it comes in the market, no matter what I try to do to stop it. So you'll have to say a thank you.
So the question that you asked about is creativity and what makes him happier. I've seen that a creative process is something that cannot be restricted. It often spills over into something else. But then a person knows what he is best at, and it makes sense to focus on that. And I'm sure like Wendell focuses first and foremost on fashion, and the others are like, creative spillovers. And somebody asked about commercial success bothering a designer, the creative process. I have seen in the industry that the best designers are those, the most creative and the most successful designers are those who do have somebody to look after the commercial aspect, who have somebody who looks after the commercial, and they're not bothered by that. With this, we wind up this session. Thank you very much for being a lovely audience. Thank you, Wendell. Thank you, Amma.